Henry Sikazwe has officially filed in his nomination papers to recontest the Senga Hill parliamentary seat as an independent candidate after being left out on the UPND ticket. Despite the development, Sikazwe placed continued support for President Hakainde Hichilema and called for unity among citizens ahead of the general elections. Sondra Morris Sinkala brings us the details in the following report.
The immediate former Member of Parliament for Senga Hill constituency, Henry Sikazwe, has urged citizens to remain united as the country heads towards deciding its future leadership in the upcoming general elections. Sikazwe, who was left out on the UPND ticket, has opted to stand as an independent candidate while maintaining his support for President Hakainde Hichilema.
Natotera sana mweba isa mukutushindika pakutila tuinga chitafaya wa nominations yonse fyaenda fyebwino ifwe imwe bonse mwebekeri apa ndefo kumupera kwenchito imwe bonse twalaba nifo ba campaign manager bakwa Henry Sikazwe icho tulefwaya omutende muno musenga utwalirire
The former lawmaker has officially filed in his nomination papers in a bid to reclaim the Senga Hill parliamentary seat.
Lelo kuli MP kwena twala imini na independent. Kabutila tulebeba bakateko kutila hawe ife tulefo okuchita nifi. So mwewe na Senga na papa tasana ichirefu aikwa.
Meanwhile, speaking shortly after filing his nomination papers, Sikazwe said that he is still on
kufika mumbala na panopene pasenga yubatira taleni fumenipo umulandu tatuishibe lero twatira natukwata abantu abengi sana tuletwala no buyantashi ifwe twala supporta Hakainde Hichilema ndakateka weso.
The Senga Hills elections have been tightened up with contestants coming to the surface with messages of relieving the people of Senga Hill. Now the people have been left in suspense.
The leadership of the Commonwealth Board of Governors, with Zambia's High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, Masinja Mazoka, securing a second term as Vice Chair during the board's annual meeting held in London. During the meeting, the High Commissioner of Malta to the United Kingdom was elected Chair of the board, taking over from Tonga. Ms. Mazoka's current term ends on June 30, 2026, and her re-election extends her tenure on the board until June 30, 2027. The Commonwealth Board of Governors serves as the principal governing body responsible for oversight, accountability, and strategic direction within the Commonwealth system. The board comprises representatives from member states, London-based high commissioners, civil society, and the Commonwealth Secretary General. We go for our first break. We'll be back with international news.
Is that so? Me, I like Vakazi Vatad. Those who are not tall should not really hold me to say you are an enemy of progress.
At you are a Mario. Are you one? Are you a Mario?
I don't know if in Zambia we have people or women that are able to fund a classic man like me. Because this shoe, I wish the camera could pick. Ni McLean. Camera, please. Speak in Zapata imwe. You see the shoe?
Maklini.
Not the Chinese. This shoe. For you to buy this, you need to have a proper budget. It's about 10,000. There are phones here. These are not the Techno or whatever. By the way, I'm original. Ukaenda moja mo light, yapo yankala dark. Ukaenda moja mo light, yapo yankala. She's given this podium, a public podium, podcast Yatu, which is the biggest podcast happening right now in Zambia, in case you don't know. She got on that podium, and instead of her discussing about productive issues or productive matters, she starts attacking mafias. Mafias is broke. Mafias is too odd. Am I too odd, please? If she's not going to apologize over what she said, we have sat with my legal team and we are planning to take it further. She has really done a lot of damage to my reputation.
Lelo makambo lopi makambo na lembie lelo kitumba lopi kosona na pa na boy ko bepi na zoto na ngazambe na lembie Mario papa.
Welcome back. And in international news, Donald Trump has sparked more speculation over his intentions towards Cuba, telling reporters that he will be the U.S. president who finally intervenes in the Caribbean nation. Trump didn't clarify his statement, nor did he answer questions about a U.S. aircraft carrier having reportedly entered the Southern Caribbean on Wednesday. Africa News has more details.
Donald Trump has sparked more speculation over his intentions towards Cuba, telling reporters that he'll be the US leader who finally intervenes in the Caribbean nation. Other presidents have looked at this for 50, 60 years, Trump said on Thursday, and it looks like I'll be the one that does it. Trump didn't clarify his statement, nor did he answer questions about a US aircraft carrier having reportedly entered the Southern Caribbean on Wednesday. The comments came one day after U.S. prosecutors indicted Cuba's former president Raul Castro on criminal charges related to the downing of two small planes in 1996. Cuba's president Miguel Díaz-Canel condemned the move as a political stunt intended to justify what he called the folly of military aggression against Cuba. Trump has been threatening military action against the island since U.S. forces captured Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro in January. Trump has also pledged to conduct a, quote, friendly takeover of the island if its leadership doesn't open its economy to U.S. investment.
Residents in parts of Democratic Republic of Congo initially believed the first Ebola cases were linked to witchcraft before health authorities confirmed an outbreak in the country's Ituri province. Witnesses say unusual illnesses and deaths were recorded as early as mid-April, several weeks before officials and the World Health Organization publicly declared an outbreak. Africa News has more details.
Weeks before an outbreak of Ebola was declared in the Democratic Republic of Congo, affected communities reportedly thought people were dying due to witchcraft. A hospital official in Rambara, a town in the eastern Ituri province which is the epicenter of the epidemic, says they believed traditional leaders had cast a curse. What we must avoid in this kind of situation is taking rumors at face value and spreading them, because that seriously undermines the effectiveness of the response. The rumors, coupled with the fact that medical staff were unable to identify the less common strain of the highly contagious hemorrhagic fever, led to its rapid spread. Some people will say it's magic, others will refuse to believe it or say we're making up the figures, while others will say we're downplaying it for various reasons, but the reality is that the epidemic exists. The country's health infrastructure faces many technical and financial limitations when it comes to detecting outbreaks such as Ebola. Some healthcare workers were even infected because they lacked protective equipment. Break 4 of whom have died. Healthcare themselves. By the time the rumor about the fetishist nature of the illness began to disappear, locals say there were already 246 suspected cases, including 65 recorded deaths. The origin of this latest outbreak in the DRC is yet to be clearly established.
And in sports news tonight, the Ebola outbreak in eastern DRC has forced the national football team, the Leopards, to adjust its pre-tournament plans ahead of the FIFA World Cup 2026 in North America. I'll read that again. Officials have cancelled a 3-day training camp and a planned farewell event for fans in Kinshasa. Here is a report.
The DRC qualified for the 2026 World Cup in March after coming through a long playoff series. It's their first since 1974, when the country was known as Zaire. Qualification sparked scenes of wild jubilation across a nation battered by decades of conflict. However, their preparations have been hit by another outbreak of Ebola in the eastern Congo and neighboring Uganda. Health officials say the situation is continuing to deteriorate.
But at present, the situation is not yet under control. There are still a lot of detections. That is, we are still diagnosing positive cases. And there are also cases that we are looking for in the community, in healthcare structures and health institutions.
As the death toll continues to rise, DRC football authorities have cancelled a planned 3-day training camp and a huge send-off for the team in the capital, Kinshasa. But it's perhaps a small price to pay for the massive efforts by health workers to contain the spread of the disease in affected areas. The World Health Organization says it could take up to 9 months before a vaccine against this particular strain of Ebola is ready. It has now declared a public health emergency of international concern, but said it was not at pandemic level.
Beyond the confirmed cases, there are almost 600 suspected cases and 139 suspected deaths. We expect those numbers to keep increasing, given the amount of time the virus was circulating before the outbreak was detected.
The Leopards' preparations will now take place elsewhere. The squad itself is largely outside the problem, with all the players best in other leagues around the world, mostly France. The DRC is scheduled to play World Cup warm-up games against Denmark, Belgium and Chile, and these are expected to go ahead as planned. The Leopards are in Group K and opened their campaign against Portugal in Houston on June 17th before facing Colombia and Uzbekistan. Enoxikolia, CGTN.
On that note, we end the news, but before we go, a recap of the headlines. HH files in nomination papers. PEP alleges interference in presidential nomination process. Garing combo attackers arrested. Ebola cases caused by witchcraft